Welcome back to Saving the Republic with Joe Staten, presented by Grab Your Gear Network, where we speak to people who actually get up and go to work and work hard every day and don't just sit on their butt and scroll on their phone. So if that's you, you might want to subscribe to the network. We currently have a plethora of content offerings, including PragerU-style videos in the form of Grab Your Gear 180s, Saving the Republic here, where we cover news topics that you might not have heard of, and we have multiple other options coming in the very near future, so keep your eyes peeled on that and stay posted on the network's page. Now, for today's news cycle, we have three very, very impactful stories. And the first one I want to cover is actually a worldwide impacting story, and that is the presidential election in Venezuela. Now, for some of you who might not be familiar, such as myself before I researched this a little bit, the current president of Venezuela, Maduro, is a socialist candidate and socialist in nature. And the president of Venezuela was running against a person named Edmundo Gonzalez, which was a Democratic candidate. And the first piece of information that I want to bring you on this story is something from the AP. The direction I want to take this is talking about this in light of the 2020 U.S. election. Now, as we all know, there's been a bunch of speculation from both sides on the 2020 election. President Trump has continuously called and said that there was fraud in the election to some extent, said it was a rigged election. We all know there was interference to some extent by the intelligence agencies and also by social media companies with censoring of the Hunter Biden laptop story. So there undoubtedly was some level of rigging, you could say. But as far as the actual hard evidence of fraud and the changing of votes potentially and the not counting of votes or, mail-in ballots affecting the outcome of the election, this is really going to be really interesting to see what the AP said about the Venezuelan election and how the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken responded to the whole situation. So let's just go ahead and get into this article. Now, the first part of the article I want to touch on is actually the part that's talking about the voting machines. Now, let's get right into this. The ruling party wields tight control over the voting system, both through a loyal 5-member electoral council and a network of longtime local party coordinators who get near unrestricted access to voting centers. Those coordinators, some of whom are responsible for handing out government benefits, including subsidized food, have blocked representatives of opposition parties from entering voting centers as allowed by law to witness the voting process, vote counting, and crucially, to obtain a copy of the machine's final tally sheet. Electoral authorities have not yet released the tally sheets for each of the 30,000 voting machines as of Monday evening. The electoral body's website was down, and it remained unclear when the tallies would be available. The lack of tallies prompted an independent group of electoral observers and the European Union to publicly urge the entity to release them. So we have the EU, which is a global organization of countries in Europe, and multiple people calling for the releasing of these records regarding the voting machines. And we also had Anthony Blinken, as I said earlier, commenting on this. And Mr. Blinken had this to say.
If my colleagues will indulge me for just 1 minute, I want to speak quickly to the elections that just took place in Venezuela. We applaud the Venezuelan people for their participation in the July 28th presidential election. We commend their courage and commitment to democracy in the face of repression and in the face of adversity. We've seen the announcement just a short while ago by the Venezuelan Electoral Commission. We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people. It's critical that every vote be counted fairly and transparently, that election officials immediately share information with the opposition and independent observers without delay, and that the electoral authorities publish the detailed tabulation of votes. The international community is watching this very closely and will respond accordingly.
So clearly the Secretary of State there is suggesting that there is potential fraud in the results, and he's questioning openly the election of another country. And so this just made me think, we heard all the time, and we continue to hear people pose this question to former President Trump and other conservatives especially. And the question is, will you accept the results of the election regardless of outcome? Will you accept the results of the election no matter what happens? And they get really triggered if anybody says, well, let's make sure it's a fair election. Let's make sure everything is done correctly before you answer the question. And it's just funny to me that all of a sudden when it's convenient, when the result goes against the will of the United States, then we can question the election. It doesn't make it make sense. So, again, I think I'm not against this. I do actually agree with the Secretary of State, but it's just a principle thing. If you're allowed to question the results of one election, you should be allowed to question the results of another election, even when it's inconvenient to you. So it's just funny to me, like I said, that he wants to question the results of another country's election that is suspect. And by the way, it is very suspect. I agree with him. But if you're going to have that standard, you have to be able to question the results of other elections. And we all know that there were several question marks in the previous election. To what extent, I'm not going to say. There's several court cases. There's several examples of evidence. I've seen videos of people. There's a lot of stuff regarding the last election that people get heated about. But all I'm saying is that we should be able to ask questions. We have the freedom of speech. Let's ask the questions, okay? And if Anthony Blinken went to the Venezuelan people and said, hey, are you going to accept the results of the election no matter what happens? And they answered no, of course, that'd be warranted. But why is it different for American citizens? Why is it different for somebody who happens to be conservative in the U.S.? It's hypocritical to me. So moving on to the next story. And by the way, I'm going to continue covering this in the coming days because I'm sure there will be developments. And I just saw the military actually is not listening to the president, Maduro, to put down the protesters. So when the military starts saying no to you, you might have a bigger problem on your hands. So let's just keep watching the story. There's definitely going to be developments. I have no doubt about that. The second story of today. We all know how big tech was involved in the last election. And they were meddling. They had a favorite clearly in the president of Joe Biden to be picked to win the election. And this time we're seeing just plainly overt interference here by big tech yet again. And this is coming in the form of Google, which is censoring the results of search engine results. And I'm gonna show you guys right here live on camera, okay? I'm gonna type in, boom, President Donald. And as you can see, the first recommendation, and this is here, by the way, because I previously searched it, but the first actual recommendation is President Donald Duck. I kid you not. The first result recommendation on Google is President Donald Duck. Now, let's see what happens if we type in President Barack, just out of curiosity. Oh, wow, look, we have 10 results for Mr. Obama. Let's see about George Bush, I guarantee you. Boom, George Bush, all the way down here. But they're censoring results. And honestly, look, if you search up Donald Trump, the results come back and it says news about Harris, Donald Trump, and all the news is about Kamala Harris and painting her in this amazing light. So we have Google literally right in front of our eyes meddling and tilting and putting their thumb on the scale of the election by altering the search results that come up when you type in Donald Trump. That is not okay. And so I think a couple members of the House, and I saw Mike Lee said that they are going to demand answers on this. Hopefully they get Google to testify about this in front of Congress. We really should see that and put pressure on them beforehand. Like, you guys cannot be meddling in elections like this. You guys cannot sit on the sidelines and act like innocent babies when you're clearly have your thumb on the scale. In addition to Google, though, following Mark Zuckerberg's interesting video where he says that Donald Trump getting shot and raising his fist was one of the most bad ASS things he's ever seen in his life, his own platform, Meta/Facebook, began censoring the photo of Trump holding his fist up. And let's just be honest here, okay? The reason they're censoring this photo of Trump after the attempt on his life is because they know this photo is iconic, and they know this photo is going to get Trump reelected. And so what they're doing is they're saying, oh, yeah, this photo has been altered. This photo is misinformation because it shows a Secret Service agent that's smiling. That's the claim they're making. But obviously people on Twitter called this out, and they provided the receipts, they provided the evidence, and no, the photo was not altered whatsoever. And so clearly, this was Facebook just trying to stop the spread of this iconic image that probably is going to change the outcome of the 2024 election. And so we saw several people calling this out on Twitter. We saw several people speaking up about it. As you can see right here from Mario DeFall, Facebook blocks Trump assassination photos. First Google, now Facebook. Are they trying to rewrite history? Yeah. I mean, they did it once. They're going to do it again unless they're called out on it. And even the Meta AI, if you ask the Meta AI about the attempt on his life, it comes back and says, this was a fake event right here. Let's see. The reason for the disparity in information is due to the fact that the Trump event is a fictional event. This is coming from Meta's AI, okay? Clearly political, clearly have a thumb on the scale. So we have Google, we have Facebook openly doing it. So again, we're going to keep watching that and keep reporting that in the days to come. I always watch the polls. If you guys know me, I'm a big pollster. I like following the polls, following the trends. I watched meticulously in the 2016 election when Hillary Clinton was favored like 95% to Trump's 5% the day before the election, or 90% or something like that. and she was up, several points, for several months leading up to the election. And so it's just amazing, and it's really stark to me to look at these numbers with Trump and Kamala Harris still. And we're seeing the media hype up Kamala like she's really making up all this ground and she's doing such a great job. But really, if you look at the numbers here, she's really not doing that great of a job. And so what I did is I pulled up the Trump and Harris Real Clear Politics polling average, where Trump is sitting at about a 1.7% advantage. In the swing states, he has a pretty good polling record as well against Kamala. Wisconsin, a slight lead, 0.7 points above. Michigan, we're looking at a 1-point advantage by Trump. Pennsylvania, we are looking at a 3-point advantage by Trump. So significant numbers. Again, if Trump is leading consistently in the polls, that is significant. As you all know, a Republican leading nationally in the popular vote in this day and age is very rare, and it does say a lot when that's the case. And so, a lot of people are reporting, like I said, Kamala is making up ground, but really the numbers are not really holding up behind that narrative. The last story I wanted to talk about today is Trump's comments on an interview he had tonight with Laura Ingraham on Fox News. People have been calling out Donald Trump, saying that he's never going to leave office. There was a clip circulating of him saying, you're never going to have to vote you're never going to have to vote again if you vote this time for me. He was speaking to Christians at a conference for Turning Point USA. Clearly what he meant was, you're not going to have to vote for me again, because he was making light of the fact that Christians don't get out and vote as much. And so he was saying, if you vote for me this time, you're not going to have to vote again, because it's going to be so good when I leave office. You don't have to vote. You're just going to have it so good, which in principle, let's be honest, is not the best advice to give. You also always should be active in the political process. But people are making light of this and saying, oh my gosh, it's evidence of a dictatorship. He never wants to leave office. And so this is an interesting clip I watched from the Laura Ingraham interview that spoke directly to this claim here by Trump. Check it out.
All that, and then they say, well, no, you can't vote for him because he's literally never going to leave office. They're actually still saying that.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable.
But you will leave office after 4 years.
By the way, and I did last time, I kept hearing, he's not going to leave, he's not going to leave. Look, they are the ones that are a threat to democracy. Number one.
So he clearly is clarifying the comment. He says they are the ones who are a threat to democracy. Another thing that Trump said in this interview, which I thought was interesting, was that the Democrats literally pulled off a coup. And if you guys missed the last episode of Saving the Republic, go check it out. We had my friend Peter Burtonette, a sports editor from Omaha, Nebraska, and Jeremiah, which will be a contributor at Grab Your Gear in the near future, commenting on the fact that the Democrats literally pulled off a coup. I mean, if that's not the definition of a coup, I don't know what is. You robbed the will of the people, the 14 million voters who voted for Joe Biden in the primaries. You swapped out the candidate with somebody of your choosing. And really what we have is an oligarchy in the Democrat Party. We have a group of very rich people, powerful people, who subverted the will of the people. And, it's not being reported on. Nobody's talking about it. I don't understand that. So the interview with Trump was interesting. As I said, the poll numbers are looking pretty good for him at this point in the race. Another wild card to throw in here is that Kamala is looking at Josh Shapiro. He had a comment today about Trump saying that when he went to go hug the flag, we all know the iconic photo of Trump hugging the flag at the RNC and other speeches, but he said that him doing that was weird.
Have you ever seen this guy? Like when he's on stage, he kind of meanders over, can't really walk well, and he goes over to the flag and he hugs the flag. I love the flag, but it's a weird thing he does, right?
And this whole talking point of, J.D. Vance is weird, Trump is weird, is the new talking point. I even saw Elon Musk tweet about that. You guys need to switch up the propaganda because you're all saying the same thing. But as I said earlier, I think Shapiro would bring some extra votes to Kamala in Pennsylvania, and we will continue to be following the vice presidential situation as well as Trump and Kamala's prospects to debate. Donald Trump said today he probably will debate her, but he's not opposed to not doing it because there are some benefits to not debating her. So we will continue to follow the coverage of the Trump-Kamala Harris debate. We'll continue to bring you updates on the election, the Venezuelan election, and as always, we'll bring you breaking stories that you might not hear about from the mainstream media outlets but are very impactful to your life every single day. So if you guys like that kind of content, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Grab Your Gear Network, and also to Saving the Republic, where we post clips of the show. Leave a comment down below, leaving us your thoughts on what you thought on the video today. And with that being said, we will see you next time. Peace.